Well, now that we've got all the stereotypical little sayings out of the way, hi, my name is Bob McTaggart. I'm former Canadian military, and I have with me Rick Randall, who is my co-conspirator in this venture. We call ourselves, yeah, wave again, Rick. That's really good to the audio. You just say hi.
Hi.
Rick, I was afraid Rick was going to do his mime imitation for us today, and it would be kind of like, oh no. If you've ever driven a vehicle or had one almost drive over you, you'd know what that would mean.
So I'll just take over from here.
You do
Hi, I'm
that.
Rick.
Your effervescent personality. Go ahead, Mr. America.
I,
Please.
yes, I'm Rick Randall. I'm from the very southern provinces
Yes.
down in Virginia, um, and I'm former U.S. Army uh, jumper. That's actually where I met Bob. We're throwing ourselves out of, I won't say perfectly good airplane because there's no such thing.
No, and it was an antique aircraft, so I don't know how that even qualifies, but okay.
Antique airplane, antique jumpers. It works.
Yeah, well, probably true. When I think about it. Please carry on,
Um,
sir. Don't mime out
so
on me.
I know Bob wanted me to talk about how I got into reenacting. More importantly, how I got into reenacting Canadian. And there's a
There are
story
many
there.
called, but few can actually make it through the gates. So there you go.
So I started reenacting in about 1999. I was living in Colonial Williamsburg, and I mean literally living in the historical area. And we started a Revolutionary War unit. And a few years later, 2002, we're at an event. It's kind of raining, so nobody's doing the go out and burn gunpowder for the public thing. We're all huddling under canvas, and I spot this amazingly beautiful brunette across the camp. And my roommate spots her fairly attractive redheaded counterpart, and the two of us head over there.
Hmm.
Uh, well, I go up. She became my now ex-wife, but she also reenacted World War II. Fast forward a year, the redheaded roommate's boyfriend, not my idiot friend,
Ah!
went ahead and so that I could come had a reason to come to these World War II events because my future ex-wife liked to swing dance. He just gave me a membership for the unit that he was doing, which was the First Canadian Parachute Battalion.
Oh no.
Okay, I'll do this. And then I find out the history and I realize how closely entwined this pretty much unheard of down south unit. Most Americans aren't aware, they're barely aware Canada was in the war. They're pretty much unaware Canada had paratroopers. A lot of Canadians seem to be unsure Canada had paratroopers in World War II. And here's a unit, though, they trained at Fort Benning for a
Yes,
long
they
time.
did.
They wore American jump uniforms for their training. Even when they set up the camp Shiloh for jump training, they continued to use the American uniforms because cotton uniforms were cheaper to replace when you tore them up than battle dress, I guess. Um,
Wool's
and
itchy.
they were so critical, less itchy too, and they were so critical to D-Day. And they held the left flank of the D-Day, the entire D-Day beachhead, British, American, and Canadian. They were on the far left flank of it all. Uh, they did the jump across the Rhine side by side with the American 17th Airborne, and they dashed across two-thirds of Germany pretty much on foot to beat the Russians, so that they could get to the Baltic coast. Their orders were to get to the Baltic coast as far east of Denmark as possible before the Russians got
Hmm.
there. And nobody's heard of this unit.
Well, they are
Um,
now, so why don't you keep going? You're doing a
yeah.
wonderful job.
So one camp here, it's a wonderful history, and that brings me to my point of why reenacting is so good. One of the things reenacting brings is it's really useful to anybody who's interested in history. It's especially useful to veterans. They did there was a hit piece that came out on World War II reenactors. Oh, look, there's only this percentage of veterans who are doing this reenacting. Using their own numbers, it was double the rate in the general population because a lot
Yep.
of veterans, they find something in the reenacting because there's a lot of other veterans there and they get to do the fun parts of it. And then there's the history part where we get to teach the public, which is honestly what I love. Making warlike noises in the woods. I'm not 19 anymore and it hurts. Um,
Well,
but
wasn't
teaching,
someone we both know? His name is Major Bob Matthews, and
yes.
thank God he still walks the earth amongst us. Um, and he has a saying, and I'm trying to remember. The saying was something like this. And by the way, just for people who don't know, Bob Matthews, from the National Parachute Test Center. These acronyms will get you wound up just like 6 ways from Sunday if you don't pay attention. Out of Denellen, Florida, the major, as we like to call him, like to say, if you're going to jump, you got to either be tough or smart. I decided to be neither. So, and what Rick is referring to just is he's also he's an enthusiast that jumps with the round canopy parachute organization. I've said it wrong on purpose, Rick. There was a reason for that. Um, and he jumps more than I do. I've since stopped, but yeah, Rick and I met on the air on the ground in on the drop zone in Dunellen, and
Mhm.
decided we hated one another right away. It was just perfect to hate at first sight. There's this handsome American fellow and this ugly little Canadian scuffling about in the dark, and one thing led to another, and this is where the bromance began. But why is the bromance here? Rick is alluding to something that I'm going to walk all over him on, but he's going to pick up in a second because he's really good at, like, I throw the grenade and he throws it right back and then it goes boom. And here is 6 second delay. Woohoo. Here is what is the great takeaway from today. And by the way, Rick's email address will be posted below. And if you're interested in reenacting with the First Canadian Parachute Battalion, please look him up. The First Canadian Parachute Battalion was the forerunner of the Canadian Airborne Regiment, long storied unit in the Canadian military, and was disbanded back in the 90s, unfortunately, for a few reasons. But nonetheless, if we agree or disagree with the history of it all, the Canadian military maintains jump companies with a number of the regular and reserve infantry battalions in the regiment and the regimental system, which we'll get into another day. For those on the American side of the fence that want to learn more about why Canadians are so messed up, I suppose. I guess that's a way to put it. But in all of this, Rick, have you heard of cosplay?
Yes.
Okay. Well, isn't I think I see the look on his face. Okay, now he knows where I'm going with this. Isn't reenacting sort of an adultish, more adultish version of cosplay in a way when you think
It
about it?
it can be. It really depends on how you approach it. And
Well, I'm
some
not
units
talking the
are,
comic. I'm talking the historically accurate, deep dyed in the
oh,
wool
trying to
as
get,
you are, you
yeah,
know.
to try to get everything perfect as cosplayers do. Yes. But it goes farther than the cosplayers. And there are groups that they more focus on looking cool or looking good, and they don't get as much into the history side. And then there's other sides that get more into the history side. And then there's some that want to experience kind of what a soldier experienced as best they can.
Yep.
And then there's those who mix them all together. And I always tell the new guys, if you haven't been out in the field wearing web gear, bashing around the bush, you can't tell the public about it because you don't know it. You've got, even if it's come out with us and we'll go do a tactical, you got to learn. There's things that aren't in the books.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
because
it's absolutely
soldiers
true.
aren't stupid. Soldiers are not stupid. They come to the same solutions time and time again.
For
Um,
centuries in a row. But what do we lose when we get out of the military? We lose the connection to the uniform. The uniform is, we're no longer, that's no longer our shield. That's no longer a big part of our personality. You made a remark that you didn't know you missed this. Do you
Yeah,
remember saying that? Okay, why don't you, can
yeah.
you?
When I got into jumping, which I spent 8 years, the Army had excuses for not sending me to jump school. And then through reenacting, found out about Major Matthews and the National Parachute Test Center. And I'm like, cool, I can at least check off that bucket list and go, I'm not a wimp. I can do it.
Well, yeah, yeah, no, totally,
So I
totally.
went and I was literally just going to check off the bucket list, make 5 jumps and never do it again, just so I could say I did it. And by the end of my course, I realized something. I had been missing this environment since I took off my BDUs years before, didn't even know I was missing it, much less what I was missing. And that was, and it's important in jumping. When you jump, you literally have to turn to somebody who may be a stranger and say, hey, buddy, here's my life. Can you
Yeah.
hold on to this for me for a few minutes? That's something I hadn't had to do outside of the Army. And firefighters and policemen, they do the same sort of things. And I think anybody who leaves any of those professions, military, fire, police, EMS, perhaps even some of your higher end loggers and forestry, these high stress, dangerous jobs where you have to rely on your crew and you walk away from it, whether you retire or you find another job, and you don't even know what you're walking away from, and you think you know, but you don't know. And then
Yeah.
you find yourself in the wilderness, even if you're in a city, alone, not knowing that you're missing, why you're missing your squad mates. You don't realize that you're missing them and you don't have that support. And I think too many of our guys fall through the cracks there. They don't even know that's the support network they're missing, much less how to recreate it.
I would tend to agree. There's a whole series of traditions and normal routines. It was never a 9 to 5 job. And I
Right.
think, even to today, there are people, they just work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And they drive me insane. Like they drive me literally out of my freaking mind. Even we have and if I say his name, everyone will know, but even if I don't say his name, he's gonna know. Great guy, former fire type, high-end guy, not high maintenance, just a high-end guy. And I'll get to it Monday or I'll do it tomorrow. And I can hear my flesh tearing as my hands rip into the table. Really? Isn't that nice? Whereas if you talk to a military guy, I'll get back to you in 2 hours. Okay. There you go. There's a sense purpose. Is it purpose and urgency? I think it's purpose and urgency. I think that if I miss the most, it's the sense of purpose, higher calling, I'm doing something right for the society, ta-da, and then urgency. If I ask for it, there's a reason I asked for it. It's not because I'm sitting there slumming. Oh, but
You've
yeah.
definitely got a good point there, Bob. I was never a crafty person with my hands. Luckily,
Okay.
I went into a knuckle dragging MOS, light infantry, where I only need to be crafty with one particular tool. But when I got out and I'm doing civilian jobs, yes, yes. Although I
Yeah,
prefer
yeah.
radio, that's my favorite sniper rifle.
A
I like to
PRC
snipe with a
25
155.
set? Yes, 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 yes. Yes, I
But
swam with a few of those. Yes, yes, yes. Anyway,
jobs, I got out and I did a variety of jobs, and a lot of them were, pushing paper, pushing digits around a computer. When I sort of backed my way into engineering, and it was into a production engineering role, now I had a purpose because at least we were making something.
yes.
And was it important? Yes, it was, generators for quick start jet turbine generators for hospitals and aerospace stuff. So, these are critical, must not fail. By the way, hilarious aside, I took the Microsoft uh, network IT classes to get
Oh,
certified
excuse me.
Microsoft engineer.
Okay, there. Was that appropriate? Hmm.
Yeah, right. You'll
Okay.
notice I don't ever tell anybody this. It's how important it is
You
to me.
just told the world, pal. Sorry.
Oh,
Just,
yeah, but
oh, yeah.
I told the world, so I get to this point.
Ah.
Never tell a former military guy
Oh.
that the network configuration you want him to design is mission critical. Those words have a specific
Yeah,
meaning
I
to
can
people
see
like
that.
us.
Oh boy. Yep. Mm.
You say mission critical must not fail. Do not come back and blame me when I have complete redundancy on everything.
Why
Every
do you,
system directly networked to every other system.
why do I have a landline, they say? Because then I have a landline, I say. And then they ask me to explain. Well, and you just
Yeah,
heard my landline in the background. Sorry about that. I can't,
yeah.
and it just goes to the authenticity of us working out of the back of an outhouse here. But
But yeah,
yeah, yeah.
when you've worked in the life, even if it was as you and I would be want to say, just reserves, as if that's somehow a down check.
Oh, I wrote an article about that that caught LinkedIn on fire. I'll send you a copy and we'll talk about it next time.
Yeah.
Seriously, I did. I,
Um,
I didn't mean to write one that got on, but I finally got that one that went viral, sort of. Finally. And I was pissed off when I wrote it. I was like, some guy said something stupid to me and it just,
yeah,
but
but it rewires our brains.
yeah,
We we're in a different world. Um, we approach things differently. We view the world differently. Even we don't realize. Even if you just did 2 years peacetime shoveling blankets back and forth in the supply cage, it's going to change how you view the world. And you
that's
get out
absolutely.
and you aren't really aware that the rest of the world doesn't think that way, because to you it's natural. Even though 2 3 years ago you were the long-haired kid walking along, slumping along with your hands in your pockets, kicking rocks.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's I it's funny. I actually I remember I got back from course and I'm from Toronto. That's my hometown. Born and raised in the West End, place called Etobicoke, believe it or not. And Etobicoke would be, I'll tell you the story about how my dad turned down the first McDonald's franchise opportunity in the west part of Toronto. And to his dying day, why didn't I take it? Okay, like he just I came back from course and I was getting ready to tell people to take their frickin' hands out of their frickin' pockets. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm at a bus stop. What the hell am I doing? Like, don't do that. But yeah, you well, and we self-medicate when we're fish out of water. It's recreational pharmaceuticals or it's, notice how I'm trying to say that away. Um, it's alcohol, smoking, whatever the hell it might be. But the thing is, you're trying to replace something. You're trying to habituate away, if that's a term. You're trying to habituate away your instincts. Because I think that the training and it always falls back on the training. The training takes over. You just become an automaton. You're so hardwired, your firmware takes it. And away you go. Programming crash, but the firmware survives, right? Um, and you just carry on. You just keep moving, and that's a term as well. Carry on. People think it's funny or anachronistic, but it's something we hear regularly, right? I think.
yeah, and I had a panic attack when I got out of infantry school, and I came home, and I'm sitting in the mall, and I'd gone there by myself, and I'm sitting in the Wendy's eating lunch, and I started to have a mild panic attack, and it took me a few seconds to realize what was going on. I didn't know where the rest of my fire team was, and I didn't know where my weapon was.
Separation
And I'm
anxiety.
surrounded by strangers. And once
Ah,
I puzzled that out, it went away because, okay, I went, that's an abnormal response. Now, what veterans, and this is something I learned at, and going down to Denellen is the one that really put the keystone in there for me. And now working with veterans, for most of us, it's a lesser level than that, so that we're not even conscious of the conflict. And that's what I want to do. I want to reach out to these guys who don't know why the world seems half a bubble off ever
Well,
since they got out. They're not sure why.
well, I had an experience, don't know how many years ago, but it was I was visiting a fire department. They're a composite department, and the term composite means they've got a full-time crew and then volunteer firefighters or paid
Hmm.
duty. It depends on where you are and how you call them. Who fill in when they crew out, when they bulk out when there's a the fire grounds are active and away they go woohoo. God, that even sounded almost military, didn't it? In a way. Hmm. I saw them on the pumper and they were basically doing I think they were doing their daily maintenance because I think that's the schedule they had that, the chief calls the shots in a department and that's what this chief wanted. And they were acting like a bunch of idiots. I had a flashback to a vehicle crew that I was part of, acting like a bunch of idiots, and I don't remember the joke, but I remember the inference. When people look at an armored vehicle, they go woohoo and see it buzzing along at 60 clicks through the bush or whatever the hell it's doing, going bang, bang, pew, pew, bang, bang, or getting blown up or whatever. And they say, wow, me, I see 8 hours in a wash rack. That's just how, I see
That's
daily
why I
maintenance.
sold my World War II Jeep. Was I got tired of every time I took it out in the woods and drove it like I was supposed to, I had to completely wash it down and get all the bearings re-greased. It
Exactly.
wasn't worth the fun.
Well, saying, that's one of the reasons why, well, a beautiful segue, and thank you for the intro. Into Red Friday. And by the way, as we wrap up the reenactor part, do you have it? Is there anything that stands out, Rick, in your mind that you want to make sure people walk away with? What's their takeaway about reenacting? What's the big point you really want people to have?
There are 2 points. The first is for
Give the
those
guy
of
one,
you,
he takes two. It figures. Must be infantry. Yeah.
yeah, if if you're former service, you might find people that you vibe with, as the kids say these days.
Yep.
But for all reenacting, it's about remembering those who came before to honor their memory so we don't forget what they sacrificed.
Yeah. Bang on. Because we stand on the shoulders of heroes. We really do. Or giants. I think giants is they
As I've told many a young soldier, you know, I haven't been alone since I was 17 years old. I've been by myself, but I haven't been alone because since I put my hand up and swore an oath before God, I have had every person who wore the uniform before me looking over my shoulder, and everyone who will come after me wearing the uniform looking back to see how I did. And I do it under their burning glare if I do it wrong. So that's that's a remembrance in and of itself. And that's kept me on the straight and narrow sometimes. You'd call it
um,
regimental tradition.
yes. I think, well, yeah, unit tradition is huge. At wherever you served and whatever you did. I think that as part of that remembrance, I mean, we can reach back. I come from a unit that could reach back 200 years credibly to its foundations. That in the Canadian military is a long time. I mean, the
Yeah.
Brits, as you know, I mean, to explain the Canadian military to someone who doesn't know, water down the British side and then take about 400 years off it, and that you're close because we just don't have the track. We don't go back that far into the bush as they do, legitimately
Yeah, because
so.
no British regiments turned into Canadian regiments. They all went home, right?
Well, there was one, it's storied, and I need to do a little more research on this before I start babbling too much. But there is a reenactors group. If you, I think it's more of a social group than a reenactment group, but they do have a credible pipe band and drill team. 76 Fraser Highlanders. Now, that was a Highland levy. It was partially to clear the Highlands. They landed at Quebec with Wolfe and disbanded in Quebec to pacify the local population, which meant that they
Right.
got a bunch of French, they basically they were going to intermingle the two national bloodlines, if you want to call it that, and pacification through marriage, which was a time-tested tradition and something that happened. That, to my knowledge, is the only one that disbanded on Canadian soil. Other than
Right.
that, yeah, no, they would come, they would fight, they would, there used to be an old saying, what was it? Oh God, anything but Niagara. They didn't want to be posted to Fort Niagara on the peninsula. For love nor money, they didn't want to be posted to Fort Niagara. And that's another story for another day. But apparently that one has some weight. It's actually true. But if we were to, we'll explore. I have a reenactor experience where we created a living history unit called the Fourth Canadian Mounted Rifles Association. The Fourth Canadian Mounted Rifles was a World War One battalion made of drafts from different cavalry units because they discovered that horses just really weren't a good thing in the trenches. And one of those units was the Governor General's bodyguard, and the bodyguard was the precursor to the unit that I served with. So go figure. We had a couple of reconnaissance motorcycles with sidecars that we built, like fabricated from nothing to mimic a 1917 style Douglas motorcycle. Fascinating little bit. We no longer do it. We evolved into Red Friday because the mission got bigger. And you alluded to a moment ago, firefighters and so forth, public safety sector. We're Red Friday Talks, which is what we've evolved into. I am the co-refounder. I don't know if you want to call me that. It sounds lofty, maybe. I'm the guy that had the idea, one of the guys that had the idea. That's a better way to phrase it. And we took Red Friday with the two ladies who started it back in 2004-ish, Lisa Miller and Karen Bohr. Mission that they started, and this is what they wanted from day one, actually. So we get to fulfill a dream for two people and do some good along the way. It's not a bad deal. And I think we truly, the people that are involved, Randy Arsenault, myself, Dave Connor, and a whole bunch of much better, my betters, who are associated and work with us. And I mean that sincerely when I say my betters. These people are better than me, easily. And by the way, just in case, the veteran compare service game, we don't play that here. And that's one of the reasons why we're starting, as you and I have talked, that we're starting the Weekend Warrior podcast as we are today. Like today is number one. Is that we recognize service for service sake. Whatever you did doesn't
Right.
matter. You signed that piece of paper, you took the pledge, you took the oath, you stood up. That's all we need. That's what we need. And we need more of that in society. Volunteerism, belief in a higher goal, belief in values that are larger than ourselves, so on and so forth. But with Red Friday, I got back on mission. Okay, like I'm back on mission when it comes to this stuff. Despite me looking like that Padre from MASH, don't even go there. But yeah, I know. You were gonna do it sooner or later, so I just thought I'd catch you before you said something about Father Mulcahy. Okay, yeah, there you go. We have an international organization now where we have our chief of training was a you call him a battalion chief in the American vernacular, depending on where you live. To us, he was a district fire chief, which meant that he was the command guy on the ground when stuff was happening. He'd have the white helmet. He started peer support when it didn't exist in a major metropolitan Canadian fire department, and he is revered by people who meet him. They just absolutely revered. We have Randy Arsenault, 20 years with the Metro Police in Toronto, and which is what 5,000 plus officers. So that makes it one of the largest metropolitan police forces on earth, let alone in Canada, by the way. Randy is just an approachable, straight up community guy, which is important because it allows you, what I got from that training, and number one, it helped save my life. There's no question about it. Because I was in some pretty dark places. I went decades, decades without being diagnosed. And I'm not happy to have a PTSD and depression combo pack diagnosis, but it sure gives me insight into who the hell I am and what I became. And it's funny because most of my, I'm told in one opinion that I got my base injury during service. Okay, that makes sense because I can track it to an event. And the second is that I got a complex add-on, a combo pack, because I was in a relationship with a person who I clinically would qualify very likely as a grandiose narcissist, and that just made life hell for decades. And I thought I was staying to defend the kids, and basically it's true. One kid, that kid got her dream because I laid down, and now I'm the enemy. Funny how you become a witness they become a witness for the prosecution. But anyway, that is kind of where I come from, and my wounds are real. I'm as much, excuse me, I crawl, I beg your pardon. I get choked up a little bit when I do talk about this, quite frankly. What I do get from this is far more than anything I could ever put in. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, just the payback is beyond. I have had people tell me that my joke or well, one of the themes that you and I have talked, because we both natively idiotically do it, is we post memes. We steal farm memes and put them out into our lines on Facebook and so on. We're going to start doing that in the first response. I'm sorry, in the Weekend Warrior, because people laugh. And if you can make a person laugh, you're going to make them think twice. There's that old story, and it was actually in some of my research for another episode. I read Reddit. There's some really good subreddits, military subreddits. Again, we'll add that information will be being made available, so you can go check them out. I mean, they're really quite good. But one of them said, "I didn't kill myself today." That was the working title. It kind of freaked me out, kind of triggered me. It's like, what the hell is this? Turns out that person got waved at while they were driving to kill themselves, and they stopped. They decided they weren't going to do it because a lady and her child waved at it. I think they were crossing the street, but they were being nice. It's, oh, thank you for stopping, kind of a wave that we get in North America. You know, we still get that, and we get in Europe. Here, not so much. They run you over before they make sure the body was still warm after they hit you. But I mean, quite literally, it's bad. But you know, that's where I'm going with that. So essentially, if someone takes the training, it's 2.5 hours, it won't kill you. If you want to be certified, we charge for that. That's how we make money. And then leading into our larger mission, getting people back on mission, we support veteran-owned businesses through Support Our Heroes directory, and veterans and their immediate family. We're talking one generation out, so the wife or the kids, not third cousin. We can't afford to do that. We provide free premium listing, which is worth, you know, a few $100s a year, but we do that. So we charge businesses who want to sell into the veteran community and support the veteran and be seen as supporting, which is premium, you know, halo branding at its very best. That pays the bills. And that's how we do that. And if you want to be certified as a peer supporter trained by Red Friday, aka to a fire department level, because that's what we can claim, a fire department level, because there are fire departments who've taken the training and are very, very happy with the results. I think certification is between $100 and a few $100, depending on the circumstances and how it's done.
Yeah.
And you prove skills. And I'm going to get you to take it shortly too, because you and I both, I'm qualified on it. I think we all need to be, if we're part of the,
Yeah.
I'm going to guilt you, dude. I'm guilting you now.
Well, and I'm probably, after I take it, I will probably push it on my home jump team.
Please.
Just
The more
because
people,
that's one of the missions we have, is we view ourselves as, we don't just go to air shows and do pretty demonstration jumps. We're more of a veteran outreach group that we, as I've told some of the new students when they came through for training, I don't hang out with these guys because we jump. I jump because I get to hang out with these guys, and that's what we happen to do. If it was fly fishing, I'd learn how to tie flies. Um,
Yep.
but we judge ourselves. Our biggest level of success is what we call the number of saves, and
And
we've
you'll
had
never know that. You'll never know the totality of that
right,
number.
but we
And
have had
that's,
we've had people come up. We've had guys say, "I was within hours of pulling the trigger,"
and they mean it,
and
literally. They do.
yeah,
They're armed, they're ready, they mean it. Yeah.
and I've been there myself. So anything this kind of training, if all we do is it's like first aid training. I can't fix you, but if I can keep the red stuff in and going round and round, and the invisible stuff going in and out long enough to get you to a medical professional, you can probably be saved.
Well, that's
But I've
exactly
got to
how
have this.
that, yeah.
Yeah, I've got to have the skills to keep you from dying on the spot.
Well, that's why our mission alignment, you and I as
Yep.
people, works so perfectly well, because that's what Red Friday does. We
Right.
are the canary in the coal mine. We are the safety guard on the crosswalk. That's what the peer support team does, and then we bundle you up
Yep.
and get you to a professional. We don't pretend to be the medical types. There are many people far
Right.
more qualified, but I think in terms of, we can agree that lived experience, such that you and I both have lived experience, the more we can get the word out to those that are similar to ourselves and just connect with them. Say, look, you have the lived experience. You need a mission, go help save some lives. You can do it so easily, and change the frequency of an individual's thinking, so that boom, their channels change. They're in a better position to make a rational decision. Because again, without getting into the wires and touching the third rail, as it were, we know that when the amygdala is hyperstimulated and you're in the fight or flight mindset and the adrenaline is going, you do not make good decisions. You
Right.
just don't. And it's funny. A guy I work with, Dave Connor, and I give him complete credit for this one. Hand them a bottle of water. Because honest to God, the water, the act of drinking water resets it's going to come back to me in a moment. There's the vagus nerve, the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is
Vegas.
reset. I never say it correctly. But the vagus nerve is reset through the act of drinking water. We'll get into that in another episode. That's a complete discussion all on its own. But if you've
Well,
got
there's also
something,
an indoctrinated behavior in there too.
yeah, oh yeah,
I'm
no, no. Well, there's the
drink
sociality of,
water, drink water private, and you just stop and drink water, and everything else goes on hold. Do you drink that water?
well, yeah, it's funny. There was I don't know where I come up with the most arcane stupidity. Um, there's a scene in the movie Passchendaele. Now, they actually explained why they wanted to light a cigarette. It wasn't the cigarette, it was the 5 seconds that it took to light a match and go through the ritual of lighting a cigarette. That gave him time to pause and think.
Yeah.
That's the way he explained it. And of course, the act of giving a bottle of water, because the minute you hand something to someone, they automatically reach out to take it, right? That's just
Right.
how we're built. That resets the whole damn system. So, in aid of all of that,
You were talking about, what the mission is, and I want to say something to whoever's watching the podcast. To those of you, to you are not a burden. You are not inconsequential. You are the mission. It's not weak to reach out. You have comrades. Find us. We'll look for you, but give us a signal because you are mission critical and never forget that.
we all
I
owe
just
each
had
other.
wanted to put that out.
No, and that's a beautiful. I mean, we all owe each other that debt of service. What is it the kids these days have? They have online life. Oh, I just And these kids are as tough as tofu. Honest to God, they're not the greatest generation. And I'm actually concerned. I really am, because I know that in the 80s and 90s, we were tough as nails compared to these guys. And yet we're wimps.
That's because we were semi-feral. Our
Yeah,
parents threw
I
us
think
out
we're
during the
really
summer.
the ones that drank from the hose. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
probably truth in that. Because my
but
mom
it's
would kick
it's
me out at 8 o'clock in the morning on a summer day and not expect to see me until sundown. As soon as the street lights came on, which would be around 9:30 where I was in July, be home. Other than that, meh, I'm not going to see you for 21 hours. Get the hell out of here. I don't want to know about you.
but
Okay.
there's signs that this generation isn't lost. I've got a family friend. She's going through her basic course. She's learning how to be a BB stacker for the United States Army.
Ooh, ooh.
Um,
No,
and
that's great. That's really outstanding.
yeah,
That really is.
and I not being in a support branch, I have no idea of she can get released on the weekends for family passes, which is something completely unheard of in the infantry world when you're in training.
Yeah, you don't.
But
Yeah, when you're on course, you're usually CB'd for some
yeah,
stupid reason, and that. Well,
but she's so I go down and visit her because she's an hour and a half down the road. So every weekend I go down and visit her for about 4 hours, check up on her for her family. But she's an example. Like the way she and her comrades look out for each other, even if it's somebody you hate and their rucksack is just kicking their butt on a hump, you help them out. We help each other out. They do this without being ordered to. Okay, they're slackadaisical by your standards and mine. They've never used an iron, much less starch. They don't even have to polish their boots anymore. But where
you're
it
kidding. No
counts,
way.
the U.S. Army issues suede out boots, which I actually like as a former drill sergeant. I got better things to do for Joe to be doing at night than standing up and trying to shine his boots for 2 hours. I can impose discipline all sorts of ways. I'd rather him get 2 more hours of sleep. But these troops, where it counts, they're watching out for each other. They're helping each other along. Maybe physically they need more effort, but institutionally we've gotten better at building up bodies. When you went through course, when I went through course, we were basically just beat the troops up until they get tough.
Yeah, go on a road run with your combat boots on, carrying a weapon. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And if you
yeah.
get shin splints, it just means you're weak, as opposed to you have micro fractures in your legs.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's that little reality. Well, so your point is that we should have
Don't
faith.
despair.
I've
They're
got a,
they're gonna pull through in a different way than you and I did.
yeah, that I'm from the hit the wall with kinetic energy until it fractures school.
Yep.
Maybe it's because I was armored, I don't know, but here's the I have a feel good story that I was going to say, but I think that was the best time. You've done such a beautiful intro. And yeah, your experience is completely valid. I mean, I think that young lady will come to realize how lucky she was. You're the uncle, I'm assuming.
No, I'm unrelated, but
You can be an uncle, but not be a blood uncle. I'm
right.
assuming you're the uncle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's an uncle-like relationship.
I have, how would I explain this guy? Mr. S is what we'll call him because he's a serving member and I don't want to, get him. He wouldn't get in trouble. I don't feel I don't have his permission to identify him. So I'm not
Right.
going to. But Mr. S, was a cadet with my son. And, Mr. S wanted to go airborne. So the cadets have an airborne program that they run out of Trenton Air Force Base here. I'm not here to be here, but in Ontario, in Canada, there's Trenton Air Force Base, and it is the largest Air Force base in the country, RCAF. And they had a maniac who was the commander for a while. Yeah, he was a serial killer. That was fun. But
Oh, I remember that guy. Yeah.
yeah, he's a sinister about it. We're gonna examine him sooner or later, and how do narcissists and sociopaths and crap get into command positions. That's another day's conversation. I think we've all had a narc as a CO or an OC somewhere in our lives. But that's neither here nor there for the moment. Anyway, Mr. S, he tried para. I paid for him to go to a private gym, a whole bunch of stuff. He didn't pass. He physically he was up to it. Mentally he was up to it. I think that he tripped. I think he sprained his ankle and he didn't pass. I think that's, I'm going to leave it as the I think part. He medicaled, which sucks, but he was there, and he's going to be a candidate for Denellen, but recently married and so on. His life has just gone domestic, so we're going to leave him alone for a while, but I'm going to get him to come down and jump with you or one of the guys sooner or later. Anyway, I digress. So he wanted to be an officer. He was working on his degree, so on and so on. The math wasn't there. Sent him to private tutors, didn't work, no math, no math, no math. So he got offered a trade position, and the only thing they had open was a cook. And I said, grab it. Because once we get you in, then we can massage the system to get you where you want to go. But we got to get you in the door first. Get in the door, get your reputation started, get your reputation going. So he did. I don't know how many phone calls I got from him because he says he wouldn't have made it without me. Father abandoned the family, a whole bunch of stuff. Just a nightmare scenario, but he's an awfully good human being. He's a good guy. He's just at the bottom of it. He's a super good guy. Ethnically, we're very different. So people ask, how the hell did you two get together? I don't know. Mother was from the southern part of the island. What could I say? No, I had no relations with his mother. I promise you. Nice lady, but no, 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 no. Never, that never happened. But he considers me his surrogate father. I consider him my surrogate son. Simple. Fast forward, he did a couple of years as a cook. All of a sudden, he got his degree. All of a sudden, his math was good. Why? Because cooks need to know math. And if you do it every single freaking day, it's going to stick. He went on to, I don't know if he was top of his class. I know he was damn near top of his class. He's now a qualified officer in the branch that he wanted to serve in. Leave us face it, it's combat arms. But he is a very solid representation of what you can do, providing a little bit of impetus on the other end. I didn't do any of the hard work. I was just there to listen. I was in the mentor role. But I am so damn proud of this guy. Okay, I didn't call him a kid because he's not a kid anymore. But I'm so damn proud of this guy. And if I am never credited with this, that's fine with me. That's absolutely fine because I can look at that family and know there are 2 sons and a daughter. I've had direct influence on all 3. And they seem to feel that my intercession in a couple of events was life-changing for the better. So fantastic. That's just, if that's on my tombstone or not on my tombstone, I can explain it to God. That's kind of the thing. I'm hoping, I'm praying, because I am a prayerful guy on occasion. Wish and hope that every person who served can form a connection similar to the one that I haven't had with Mr. S. My time with Mr. S is on hiatus because he's newly married and he's got a life he has a business, and he's a reserve type, and he's got stuff to do. But he knows. Like I believe I was the first person he called when he graduated. And the honor of that phone call, that made my life, that validated a lot of my belief structures. Okay. So that's my little story. And the fact that kids love me, cats and dogs love me for reasons I still can't figure out. And I've got 4 cats in the house because I couldn't let the strays die. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about, let's get off that because I'm going to choke. Okay. That's just, let's get off that and let's get on to 306. What is 306? You say that's an area code. Ooh, not a caliber? No, it's not. It wasn't 308. Why is that an area code? There must be a conspiracy. We'll talk about that another time. But 306, that's Saskatchewan. What the hell is Saskatchewan, an American would probably say? Well, it's a province, basically dead center of Canada, kind of the halfway point. Manitoba says they are, but Saskatchewan would argue to the contrary. Population somewhere around 1 million for the whole place. So they're not huge, but it is in that province, I believe, is either the second or the first largest potash deposits on Earth. There's a city called Saskatoon, which is at one end of that potash deposit. So obviously you know what the main industry in that city is, and it is a full city. Why 306? 306 is the area code, and tactical is the last part of the name of that store. 306 Tactical, I'm going to put in a plug. Dealing with 306 Tactical was like waking up with a breath of fresh air. They get it. Bryce Walker is the partner that we deal with from 306 Tactical, and they're a gear shop. So if you are a uniform, like sell to the police or they, public safety sector, military veterans, so on and so forth, we're going to promote the hell out of these guys because they get it. Like they seriously do get the culture. They have agreed, they volunteered. We didn't ask. They volunteered to be the anchor in the province. Why, you say? Well, we're working on building a model that we can take from Saskatchewan and just cookie cutter it across North America. And the cookie cutter is this. Everyone is suffering for the reasons which we don't need to get into, geopolitical, economic, whatever, disruptions in the political system, so on and so on. The world just isn't normal anymore, at least to a lot of people, me included to a certain extent. And I'm sure you feel it too. Businesses are not equipped to deal with someone who comes in who has a stress injury, who may go into an episode, may act out, may be triggered. Okay. Peer support prepares them for that. So at the very least, they can go through scaling questioning, they can give a bottle of water, so on, get that individual back into their right space or as close to. If you look at the mental health continuum, which is something we'll discuss in detail another time, the mental, get them out of the red into the orange. So they're hypervigilant or active, but they're not reactive to the point where there's harm going to come out of it. Okay. Great. And we are beginning to recruit psychologists and masters of social work to give backup to the staffs of the stores and retail and other types of businesses that we are looking to list. And this goes back to the Support Our Heroes directory. We give no charge listings to veteran owned and so on businesses. Well, any business can list as a supporter, no charge. Premium guys are the ones that pay our bills. So they're the ones we're obviously after. Generally, it's $200 a year, which is a pittance compared to what they're getting and what others. I don't even think there is a competitor in the space, quite frankly, not one mission driven like we are. But let's round this up very succinctly. 306 Tactical is the anchor in the province. We are reaching out right now. We have begun our outreach to local business directories that are on the local level. Well, we're national and international, so we're not a competitor. We occupy the same neighborhood, but we're not in exactly the same space. Hopefully, as we develop those relationships, we can start bringing more businesses into the directory, both veteran-owned, civilian-owned, and so forth, and friendlies. But at the same about volunteer firefighters, and that 85% of firefighters in North America are volunteer or paid duty. Pick your words if you like, but they're not full-time firefighters. They're not career. Anyone who's a firefighter signed the same ticket for adventure that a veteran or a military person did. You're going to put your life on the line to protect others. That's kind of the mantra, the point.
Yeah. I
We
know I'm
promote,
not going into a flaming building for people I don't know.
But you'll go
I'll,
in
I'll
with people that you do know.
yeah, I think I could, but I know that if it's a house and I don't even know that there's anybody in there for sure, I don't see myself kicking in the door. I don't have what it takes to do that job.
I don't know if I do either, but I certainly take off my hat to those who do, and they need our support and
Yeah,
recognition.
exactly.
And they are at epidemically low recruitment numbers. So, one of the things that we're going to be making a big deal out of is volunteer fire services. And that's what we're doing in Saskatchewan. If anyone listening has interest in it, my email again is in the attachments and all the happy stuff. Um, we're actually thinking, or I'm thinking, or we're thinking, we'll create a synopsis of today's episode with key points in it. And all you got to do is give us your email address, and we'll send it to you. And by the way,
Hey,
we don't sell or give email addresses to anybody. Just got to make the privacy point. Sorry, bud. I didn't
let
mean
me
you to.
make a point real quick that it may not have occurred to you as a Canadian, but it is of rather more significance in the U.S. We talked about how we're going to take people who we're offering training to businesses so they can handle. That guy comes in and he's just a fuming vial of fuming red nitric acid,
Yep.
and we're going to chill the mixture, at least get him somewhat stable. This is what's called an emotionally disturbed person. And those calls go out on 911. And who do they send to respond, at least in the United States? They send patrol officers who are who most of their emotionally disturbed persons are legitimate nutcases or drug addicts.
Oh, yeah.
And they come expecting a certain threat and are inclined to react to the threat they perceive is going to be there. If we can get these guys so that when the cop shows up, he's sitting in the corner with his hand shaking, holding a bottle of water, we've dropped his threat level. We have reduced the chances of an awful but lawful use of force. That and that's good for business. That's good for the person with the force. That's good for the cop. Everybody wins.
Yep. That's so
You
true.
know, and that's a selling point, I think, for this program.
Well, you're one of my betters then, obviously, because not I as an I person, there's no I in team, as we all remember hearing so many frickin' times. Um,
I have an off-color response to that.
oh, well, you have an off-color response to good morning, so, I'm not surprised somehow. Uh, well, you're absolutely right. And that goes to the larger mission of trying to calm society. We are a hyper-vigilant society, unfortunately. And we are chock full of self-gratifying narcissists. And I'm afraid that I would have to agree with some expert opinion that the instant gratification of online life, if you want to call it that, I don't think it's life, but online, uh, it can be a wonderful part of a life. But when something becomes the sole purpose of your being, that's not living. That really, in my experience at
Right.
least, that's just not living. So those are collateral benefits. We'll plug the 306 Saskatchewan project or the 306 Tactical Anchor the next time we speak, because we're going to have more updates on it for that. But that's the main marquee move that we're making throughout 2025 and 2026. Looking to build a directory up to 1,000 listings. I think we're at 218, 219 right now. Not bad. We're in pre-launch. But we want to have significant numbers because obviously we want to have a significant impact. And that's the way that thing rolls. So that would be that for that particular subject. I think that we're getting close to our close time on today's wonderful diatribe and self-articulation and blah, blah, blah. I just used every $75 word that I've got. I'm going to drop down to the $10 ones, eh? We're going to go
That's
now.
good because infantry branch didn't clear me for 3-syllable words.
I have judiciously avoided the Pongo jokes, okay? I mean, did I
Blue
offer up
crayons are yummy.
did I offer up a bowl of crayons? Give more than you take, leave a bigger footprint than those who went before you. God bless, Rick. We'll see you next week. Thank you.
Amen.
Amen.
Out.
Out.